Overview of a high availability and disaster recovery. Now, what is the high availability? High availability means all the services or the storage or application must be available to the users every time. That is what high availability. That is all part of an application and the infrastructure it relies on must be highly available. Highly available, that means it should not be it should not go down because of the hardware, software or any other things. So it should be or it must be available every time for the users who's using those application and resources, and that is called the high availability. And the high availability, we have to manage, the administrator has to manage the high availability of the resources, including data center infrastructure, server hardware, storage, network infrastructure, internet and network services also. Now, what is continuous availability? High availability and the continuous availability. The continuous availability, that is to provide the continuous availability, we have to perform the business impact analysis, that when your system or services goes down, then what will be the impact on the server or on the businesses. Then we perform the risk analysis, what could be the risk of it, then perform the application specific analysis, like if suppose some resources are not available, then what happened to that particular application or other applications. Then create the different continuous availability strategies for the different applications, and these different applications in our organization may require the different strategy for the high availability. Then what is the business continuity? Now this business continuity, that means the business will continue when the services will be available. So requirement for the business continuity planning should include that SLA. Now SLA is a service license agreements for the IT systems. So IT systems, when they do the job, they have to agree on the service license agreement that they will do this and they will not do this, and they are bound to do this. So that all rules and regulation comes under the service license agreement. Then contact info and technical background of personnel assigned to recovery. So when something happens, so the technical person's information, contact information, background or whatever the person is assigned for the recovery must be available. A secondary site must also be available. Secondary site, that means if suppose one site, our main site is having a problem, so we can run the applications or services from the secondary site, and that work around solution, so that we can recover the site quickly. Maximum outage allowed for the application, and then we have to take care, the businesses have to take care because they want to be continuous, so they have to take care that in one application how much maximum outage we can allow for the particular application, like suppose how much time or how much hours or minutes that application can go down. So business continuity technologies and data collections. So you can collect the business continuity data from business impact analysis and risk analysis. That data will help you to make a strategy for making the continuous applications or making the high availability strategy. So technologies for business continuity includes, these are the technologies we have. NLB. NLB is a network load balancer. This is also a network load balancer. It is a cluster. It is a cluster technology where we use multiple servers to perform the network load balancing. Network load balancing, that means to hold the applications or services, network services by multiple servers, so that one server will not have all the loads and the business will not go down because of the application is not available. So the application will always be available because the multiple servers are doing or handling that particular applications or services. Same as we have failover clustering on physical or virtual machines. Both, we can create the failover cluster on physical servers, or we can use virtual servers also for creating the failover clustering. Now this is also clustering, and this is also what for doing the using the multiple servers to do a particular application, to run a particular application. Now this one is failover also. Failover, that means the network load balancing and the failover do the same thing. It holds, it controls, it runs the applications by multiple servers, and if suppose one server goes down, then the other server will remain there for running that application. So if one server is not running because of any reason like hardware reason or software reason, then still the other servers will be available for running the application. So for the users, those application will always be available, always be high available, that is that the user wants, not because and it will not going to stop because of any hardware or software failure. Then application aware high availability, we can configure this application aware high availability. That means the availability configured based on the application, like which application required how much outage, or which application can be go down and which application we can't afford to go down. So based on that, our high availability solution will be aware of that application, that if something goes wrong, then which application it can shut down and which application it cannot shut down based on the priority. Conventional backup, data backups. Now data backups are also very important. We configure these clusterings, but the cluster is not a backup. Remember, the cluster is not a backup. So backup is always good. Conventional backup, that we take the backup of all the data which is available in our server right now, so that if anything goes wrong, or if the data is lost, corrupt, or something happened, then we can recover it from the backup. That is conventional backup, where we take the backup in our physical drives, like backup drives and other drives, and we restore them whenever we required. But nowadays we are having the online backup services also, where we can use these online backup services to back up our data on the cloud, and it will be managed by the third-party cloud service provider. So they will do what? They can manage our backup, they can store our backup, they will make sure that our backup is always available. So whenever we lost a data, we can get the backup from the online backup resources, that is the cloud. Then we can have a virtual machine backups also. Now if our services or our applications are running on virtual machines, so we should take the backup of the virtual machine also, so that if our services goes down or something happen or something goes wrong to the virtual machine, we can get the backup, we can restore the virtual machine from the backup also. Now these are the technology we have to make sure the business is always continue. Now creating a disaster recovery plan. Now disaster recovery, disaster means what? Something happened very disastrously, and everything goes down or something. So we should have a plan for it. We should have a plan to recover everything from the disaster. Disaster could be any. It could be flood, it could be fire, it could be anything else. Now if we lose the data, if we lose the services, then how we can recover them? So developing a recovery plan includes performing a risk analysis. What are the risks we have for these services and these servers? Then define what data should be recovered. So first we have to define that what data should be recovered first. Then define where data should be recovered and where the data should be recovered, and define when to recover the data also. Then recovery plan should be tested on a regular basis. Regular basis our recovery plan should be tested, so that if something goes wrong or disaster happens, then we can easily recover the data. Then recovery plan should be evaluated on a regular basis also, so that when time comes, we will not face any problem. Service license agreement components. So the license agreement components includes the hour of operations. As I said, the license agreement, service license agreement is a defined rules for the services provided by the IT system. so that they can provide these, it is like they have to do this thing, they have not to do these things. So these are the components for the service license agreement, like hours of operations, how many hours of operations they will provide, service availability, recovery point objectives, then recovery time objectives, retention objectives, and system performance also. Now, how high availability networking. Now, running for high availability in networking should include redundancy for the network adapter, multipath I/O, local area network, wide area network, and internet connectivity. That means when we are making sure that data is an application is available, so that data and application is available through the network. So we have to make sure the network is also high available. So network, making sure the network is high available, the basic thing is the network adapter. So we have to make sure the network adapter is right and okay, is working, and proper network adapter we use. Then for the storage area network, we can use the multipath I/O, multipath I/O configuration to use the multiple path. So we should create the multiple path to the network network storage, so that if one path goes down, the system will get the storage from the other path. We can use the local area network, we can configure the local area and wide area network and internet connectivity to make sure that it is available every time. Now for the high available storage. For planning the high availability of the storage, we should consider these technologies. For example, the RAID, where we configure multiple arrays of the disk and create a single volume with it. Now, if suppose one disk goes down or one or more disk goes down, then still the data will be available from the other disk. That is what the RAID we have. So RAID is having a different levels, so we can configure based on the requirement, we can configure those levels, and this is for the redundancy. Then we can use the direct attached storage, directly attach storage to the servers, which is we connect the storage directly to the servers. We can use the network attached storage also. Network attached storage, as we have share folders, and we store the data into the share folders of the file server. Then on the file server we have to make sure that the data is available, so that on the file server we configure RAID solution. Then also we have the SAN, storage area network. Storage area network, we can use the fiber channel, or we can use the fiber channel over Ethernet, or we can use the iSCSI storage. Then now we are having now cloud services also. Cloud services also for the data storage. So we can store our data on the cloud services. We are having different services from the Microsoft Azure. We are having different services from the other third-party services also. So we can use those cloud services to store the data, and that will be available every time from that cloud services. Now, high available compute or hardware functions. So consider using the high availability features that are built into the operating system. So in the operating system, built it with we have the failover clustering we have in the servers. We have failover clustering we can configure. We can configure network load balancing, that is NLB, and also we can configure RAID for the data storage. These two, failover and network load balancing, is for the services and applications. So we can make sure that the application is available every time, and for the data of these application we can configure RAID of array of redundant devices, so that the data is also available to those applications. Then follow the best practice guideline and recommendation for the specific application. So whenever we use the application, so with the application the guideline and recommendations will come, that what we can use for the high availability feature, for the data storage feature. So what are the options we have for that application? It comes with the guideline, so we can see the guideline and follow the best practice from it. Now, planning the high availability and disaster recovery solution with Hyper-V virtual machine. That is for the Hyper-V virtual machine. Now first, high availability consideration with Hyper-V virtual machine. Now we are having the virtual machine environment our applications are in the virtual machine, so we have to make sure the virtual machine is also highly available. Now for that, what we have to consider and what we can consider. So first we can consider the host clustering. We can consider the host clustering. That means we can do the clustering for the host which is hosting the virtual machine. So we can configure the clustering with that host so that the virtual machine is highly available. If the one host goes down, then still the other host can be available for the virtual machine. That means virtual machines are highly available in this and does not require virtual machine operating system or application to be cluster aware. Now for this, the application or the virtual machine does not need to be aware of the cluster, that they should not be, they don't need to know that they are running on the cluster environment. Then we can use the guest clustering. Now guest clustering, that means we will use, as a physical server, we use the virtual server to create the cluster, failover cluster. Now in this, the virtual machines are failover cluster nodes, and virtual machine application must be cluster aware and requires the iSCSI or virtual fiber channel interface for shared storage connections also. Now in this case, for the guest, it is what the virtual machine must be aware of the clustering, and the application also running on the virtual machine also aware of the clustering. And also for the centralized storage, we need the SCSI or fiber channel, and even for the host clustering also we need the centralized storage. Then we can go for the network load balancing also. Virtual machines are network load balance cluster here and used for web based applications. Now in first place, what is the cluster first? Very simple. If suppose we have one server here, server 1, and if we are using that server for running some application, if our application or service is running on this server, now this is the physical machine, anything can happen to this physical machine. And if suppose the service this server goes down, something happened to the RAM, hard disk or anything, processor, so the server will shut down, or it will not start or not work. Now what happened, the user will not get the service or application here because the server is now down. Now what the application which was running here is required the high availability, it is required for the business continuity. That application is very important for the users. That application must run every time. We can't afford it to get down. Now because the hardware is not working, we can't do anything. The hardware is not working, so what we can do? The application is also not working. So in that case, we can configure the clusters. Now clusters means what? We use multiple servers. We combine multiple servers together and then use these multiple servers to configure the cluster. And on that cluster, we configure the applications or services. Now what happened? These clusters will handle, these servers will handle those services or application. Now these servers, these physical servers are called nodes. So in the clusters, when we have these physical servers, they are called nodes. So we have 3 nodes and it is running single service or single application. It can run multiple. Let's say for example they are running one application on it. Now we have 2 types of clusters, network load balancing and failover cluster. Network load balancing cluster is actually for load balancing, and that network load balancing cluster is only for the web-based services. Web-based services, that means it used for running those web-based services like DHCP, DNS, web server, all those protocols, those network protocol services we can run on this network load balancing. For example, we have a website here, we have a web application here. So it is running and we want that application must be available every time. So we can configure the network load balancing cluster and we can configure with multiple hosts. Let's say I am configured with this 3 hosts. Now what happened, that application will be handled by these all three hosts. Now when the request comes for that application, for that website, then based on the priority and based on the load, it will go by these different servers. Now user don't know anything about it, that where the application request is going. It knows that I want to access that application or site, and it is going, I am sending the request, and then it is getting the reply. Now which server will reply, it depends on the cluster. So cluster will manage that which server will reply. Now in network load balancing cluster, what happened, all the servers, all the nodes will be running at the same time. That means this node will also be running, this node will also be running, and this node will also be running, and they will do the load balancing. Load balancing, that means one request goes to this server, next request goes to this server, next request goes to this server, then next request goes to this server. So they will balance the load and handle the big load also. Now in this, if suppose one server goes down, then that does not affect the service, because the other servers are there to handle the request. So it will still be running. So regardless of the hardware failure, still our server application will be available to the users. Now in other hand, we have the failover clusters. In failover clusters, it can handle those applications which is a network load balancing cluster cannot have handle. It can have different applications also, and the services that is normally network load balancing cluster cannot have. So what it can do here, it will also do the same thing. The single application will be handled by all these three servers, but in failover cluster only one server will be active and other servers will remain passive. Passive, that means they are not running. Now when this main server goes down, then the other server will take the place of that. So one of these two server will take the place and it will start running the application again. Now the user who is using those applications, they will not notice, or they will not aware about it. They don't know these things. They don't know that who's running the application in a background. They only know the cluster IP. Remember, the IP address or the IP address to access that services will be single. So the users don't know that they are accessing different servers, different applications from the different servers, the application from different servers. They just know that they are accessing from the single source, this single IP. In a background, it is a cluster's jobs to manage that application and giving the response. Now we can configure the cluster for Hyper-V also. So Hyper-V, that means we can configure the Hyper-V virtual machine on this physical server. Now if this server goes down, the virtual machine will be managed by the other server. If this server goes down, then the virtual machine will be managed by the other server. So this is what the Hyper-V, the cluster is for the Hyper-V virtual machine. So we have two options. First, we can configure this physical host. We can use the physical host as a node, and we can configure the virtual machine on it, and the virtual machine will become highly available. Or we can use the virtual host to configure the cluster. That means in a single server, or we can use a multiple servers host, and in the host we create these virtual machines as server 1, server 2, server 3, and then by using these virtual machines we can create the cluster, either network load balancing or failover cluster, and then on that cluster we can configure the application. So we have both options. We can configure the cluster on physical server also, and we can configure the cluster on by using the virtual host also. But if we use a physical servers, then the application which we are running on the cluster, they don't have to be aware of the cluster. They don't have to be aware of the virtual clusters. They don't have to aware of the cluster. But when we use a virtual machine as a cluster node, then the cluster application must be aware that they are running on the virtual machine cluster, because they are running onto the virtual machines. Next is virtual machine migration option. Migration option is also for the availability. That means if suppose one server is not running, or suppose we want to shut down the server for the maintenance, then we can migrate the virtual machine from one server to other server. Available options are for migrating the virtual machine or moving the virtual machines are virtual machine and storage migration. We can move the virtual machine from one server to other server. We can do the quick migration. Quick migration, that means the machine is not running, we just move the machine from one server to other server. We can do the live migration also. Live migration, that means we can move the machine when it was running also. So when the machine is running and used by the users, still we can move the virtual machine from one server to other server, and it is called live migration. Then the other option is Hyper-V replica. Hyper-V replica is other option for having the or migrating the virtual machine or making the virtual machine highly available. It is actually the backup of a real one virtual machine. That means we are having one virtual machine, so we can create the backup replica of that virtual machine. So if in case that virtual machine is not available or not running, then we can run the replica machine for that machine. Like we can run the replica for it. Replica is just a copy of the original virtual machine. We can store it on the other server Hyper-V. So if something goes wrong with this Hyper-V and that virtual machine is not available, then we can start the replica virtual machine and the service will go on. Then for the taking backup of the virtual machine, we can do export and import of the virtual machine. This exporting and importing the virtual machine, we can use it as a backup of virtual machine. So moving the virtual machine, live migration, that means if the virtual machine is running here, so we can move the virtual machine from one server to other server, and if the storage is shared storage, then we can only move the virtual machine. We don't have to move the storage. But if the virtual machine storage is not a shared storage, then we have to move the virtual machine with the storage also. Now when you move only the virtual machine, it will be very easy and quickly, but if you are moving the storage also, then it will take a time. But if the storage is not shared storage, then it is not easy. We can't move only virtual machine. We have to move the storage also. So live migration requirements. What are the requirements to do the live migration? Live migration requires include the live migration enabled. So migration must be enabled. Host computer processor requirements. That means the host computer must be similar. Like one Hyper-V host processor must be same of the other Hyper-V processor. Otherwise, when we move the virtual machine, it will give error. Then host computer's domain membership and user account configured. So we have to make sure that if we are having in the domain, then domain membership must be there. All the Hyper-V machines must be member of the domain, and account also must be configured. That we have to provide the delegation also. Then Hyper-V roles and management tools installed. That means we have to the Hyper-V role have to be installed. Host computers authentication configured. The authentication for the host computer must be configured. That means the server who is hosting the computers, the virtual machine must be authenticate the other server, other host. Host computers performance, network and bandwidth configured. They are also network and performance and bandwidth must be configured properly. Now for configuring the live migration, what we have to do? We have to first enable the live migration from here, from the Hyper-V virtual machines, Hyper-V manager. Hyper-V manager, we go to the Hyper-V setting, and there we can go to the live migration setting, where we can enable the live migration, and we should enable the authentication method or authentication protocol for it, for the migration. We can use the credential security support provider, or we can use the Kerberos. So if we are under the domain, So domain, under the domain, the Kerberos is the authentication protocol. So we should use the Kerberos, or if we are not using the domain, then we can use the other security providers also, security support providers, like for example certificates or all other things. Then providing the high availability with the storage migration. So virtual machine and storage migration technology enables you to move a virtual machine and its storage to another location without downtime. And during the migration, the virtual machine hard disk is copied from one location to another, and changes are returned to both the source and the destination drive. And you can move virtual machine storage to the same host, another host, or on assembly share also. And storage and virtual machine configuration can be in different locations. So we can move the virtual machine, we can migrate the virtual machine, and also with the storage. So when we migrate the virtual machine with the storage, then what happen, it will copy the storage of the virtual machine to the location, other server, another location. So we can migrate the virtual machine, we can migrate the storage also, we can migrate into same host, we can move it into same host, different location, or we can move it to another host, and also we can store it into the shared drive also, on the share folders. Now for moving this virtual machine, we have to go to the properties, or we have to go to the setting of the virtual machine. There we have to go to the virtual machine, select the virtual machine, and the virtual machine give the option move. So when we select the option of move, it will open this wizard, and from this wizard we have these two options: move the virtual machine or move the virtual machine storage only. So you can move the storage only, or you can move the whole virtual machine. We have both options. Now this is my server 2, and it is having the Hyper-V here, and in this Hyper-V I have one virtual machine here. Now if I want to move this virtual machine from server 1 to server 1, this is server 2, I want to move it to server 1, then what we have to do, first I have to go to the setting, Hyper-V setting, and under the migration I have enabled the migration. And with the enabling the migration, I have to make sure the authentication also. So for authentication, I am using the Kerberos, because I am using in it is in the Active Directory domain, so I am using the Kerberos. Now same thing I have to configure it on the other side also. So on server 1 also I have to configure the same thing, and this is server 1. So on server 1 also I have to configure the same thing. I have to enable the live migration, and for the features settings I have to use the Kerberos. So same thing I did configured here, and because it is Active Directory domain, so we can provide the authentication also from Active Directory users and computers. This is the server 2. We go to the properties and go to the delegation of it, and then trust this computer for delegation for this specific service. I select the Kerberos, and then I use this, I added this Microsoft Virtual Machine Migration Service here, and it is allowing this server 1 to migrate. And on server 1 I did the same to allow server 2. Now after all this, we can do what? We can move the virtual machine from one Hyper-V server to other Hyper-V server. Right now the virtual machine is on server 2, so I can move it to server 1. For that I will go to server 2, and I will select the virtual machine on server 2 which I want to move, and then that virtual machine setting will show here. And here I will select move. Now when I select move, it will open the wizard, and from this wizard I can select next. Now here I have two options: to move the virtual machine, or only the only move the virtual machine storage. So if you want, then I can move only the virtual machine storage, or I can move the whole virtual machine together the storage. Now if my storage is centralized in the shared storage, so I can move only virtual machine. But if my storage is not shared storage, so I have to move the storage with this virtual machine also. Right now my storage is not the shared storage, so I will select the virtual machine, moving the whole virtual machine. Select the server where you want to move. I want to move it to server 1. Then it will ask what do you want to do. It is connecting the server now. Now it asks that what do you want? You want to move the virtual machine and all the data of the virtual machine in a single location, or you just want to move the virtual machine and the data, you want to select the different location for the different items. Then you want to move only the virtual machine. Now we can't move only virtual machine because the storage is not shared storage. We have to move the whole virtual machine. So I will go with the first option. Next, then it will ask us to select the place where you want to move on server 1. So I want to move it on server 1. I will select this nano folder there. I want to move it on this nano folder. So I selected the folder now, and then I will go next. So this is what I have selected. Then I will say finish, and it will start moving now. So we have seen how we can move the machine from one server to other server.